Dr. Amanda with Straightsmile Solutions, straightsmilesolutions.com. Let's talk about why a lot of dentists are unhappy in their career. And I see it every day. I do spend a good 20 or 30% of my day on various message boards, Facebook groups. It's a good way for me to answer questions, to connect with my doctors. A lot of people tag me in things. It's just part of what I do to stay connected. I think a long time ago, we would travel to conventions a lot. We'd go to we never would miss an AADA or an AAO, and now nobody goes to those anymore, right? So that's how we stay connected with our friends and our colleagues, ask questions. And I think a lot of dentists feel very disconnected as a result. Like they need the collaboration, but sometimes they just get frustrated. So let's talk about that. And let's talk about, we're all probably interested in healthcare, right? I mean, why did you go into dentistry? Initially I thought I was going to be a physician. There's a lot of people that were. Then I kind of looked into how healthcare was going and the practice of medicine. I was like, no, I don't think I want to do that. I had enough physicians that warned me not to do it. And I knew I would never want to put those type of hours in to go into specialty like neurology or pediatric neurology, or one of the ones I was actually interested in, just because I really wanted to have a family and I just couldn't. You can't have both, not being a female. So that was probably a smart move on my part. Orthodontics was a super smart move on my part in terms of how my brain works. I definitely picked well for me. A few things, I've told you guys about that maybe I didn't think about, which was, okay, that's great. You're picking orthodontics, which is you're working on kids and teens. When do kids and teens want to come in the evenings and weekends? So what happens when you have your own kids and teens? Yeah, that didn't work too well. So, and my own kiddos were very active, and my husband was not into being the house dad at all. He was not interested in taking them to practices, which means we had to hire nannies, plural, which got really expensive. So eventually I said, okay. And there's some husbands that aren't interested in being a house husband at all. They want to work. They want to be the provider. Perhaps, if you got double student loans and you live in an area that's saturated, sometimes you can't live on one income. It's just not possible. You can if you structure things right and maybe live in a more remote city, town, or state that doesn't have such a high cost of living, but we live in Honolulu. So yeah, guess what? You got to have two people working. So I realized that since my husband refused to be, was not interested in being a house husband, going to all the events and activities we had to go to in the afternoons and evenings, doing homework and stuff like that, that I had to be, which was part of the reason why I switched and decided to do this instead. I don't regret it for a moment. My kids have done very well. One is almost up and out and the other one already is. But what I noticed you guys are doing is you guys are not only picking specialties that don't work for your personality, but you are picking cultures that don't work for your personality. And this has really become a special interest of mine. I first started off with Enneagrams. I'm a Gen Xer, but I have a lot of millennial siblings. So we're always talking about Enneagrams, wing this, that, and I realized, yeah, they're right. It's important that people know your Enneagram style. And by the way, if you want to know mine, it is, if you go, because I don't remember what it is. I think it was like a 7-wing something, but you can go into my YouTube channel and put in the keyword Enneagram and my Enneagram results will come up. But it was fascinating because I had like a lot of family members do it. And then it started making sense why people do certain things. I think it's really important to do something like that in an office, but I think you kind of have to have someone run it. And there's a bunch of companies out there that they'll do the online things, or they'll come in and they'll review it and they'll talk about how team building works when you have these, different variety of personalities. But my suggestion for the people who want to participate is to find out who you all are, find out how you guys tick, make sure you guys put yourselves in areas of the office or in, once you get tested, it tells you a little bit more of what areas you'd be good at and what areas you would be good at and what type of people would make you be more successful and what people wouldn't be. So that's basically what it comes down to. So that way you can be like, the Enneagram says you'd be better at doing this. And usually people, once they, try it, they're cool with that. And that you'd be better at working with people like this. I think the main thing is if you know you guys' Enneagrams or something equivalent, there's a lot of other options besides Enneagrams, but then you can make sure when you hire in the future, you're hiring for the right personality type to work with the culture. I think that's what it comes down to. And that gives I think it's just so smart in general, because by doing that, you work on communicating better, you work about methods of communicating, And to be honest, I mean, if I did this again, where I actually had my own staff, I would put money into this. Like I would, this would be, I know people don't want to spend extra money, but I think it's critical to build the culture first. I know that sounds so millennial, but I'm a Gen Xer and my husband's a boomer, right? So I know that sounds insane. It does not work. I have been into so many offices that are fantastic. Like the culture is just awesome, you know? And sometimes you see it on social media and then you go into the office and you're like, okay, well, that's BS, like any other Instagram. But there's some that legit are fantastic. And, you know, I know some of these doctors and I love them, but you go into their office and like it's fun, like you want to be there, and that is the vibe. I know I'm saying these things like vibe, right? But the thing is, even if you're a Gen Xer, I should have just stuck this in my title. Hey, Gen Xers and boomers, watch this, because I think everyone younger than me gets this. If you're a Gen Xer and you're just expecting people to come to work because that's their job and do what they need to do and do it because that's their job and you're the doctor, well, that's the sorry, I see this happening in enough offices currently, even locally, that it's so terrible in Hawaii. Like these owner doctors are just jacking it up with their narcissistic attitudes and everything. Sorry, there's a bunch of big heads here, especially the dudes. So yeah, but in any case, yeah. I think this is where if you don't start changing the way you do things, all you X's and boomers, you're going to lose your practices faster than you think you are. I see it happening right and left. You can't fight culture. This is what the you know, the alphas and the Z's and some of the older millennials or younger millennials want. They want culture. They want to control the culture. They want to talk about what things they're going to do. They want to talk about incentive bonus plans. They want to talk about all that. They want control of everything in the office, and it's not all your control anymore. I mean, yeah, you ultimately can make the decision, but this is not an oligarchy, this is democracy. And they should, if they have some skin in the game. Now, I'm not talking about profit sharing, that's old school. I'm talking about everything. So I think that is the issue. Y'all are investing in the wrong kind of culture. Either you've built your own practice and you never focused on culture and it's just toxic, which I see that happening, or you joined a practice and it has no culture, or the culture doesn't match with you and it's toxic. And I've been very transparent, you guys, as I've been going through this. And if you want to learn more, go to my YouTube channel again, 2,700 videos, I think now, and put in the keyword neurodivergence or neurodivergent. I found out I was neurodivergent. I had a hunch about a year ago, but I've gone through the testing and everything. Surprise. Probably a lot of you are not surprised, especially those of you who are younger and are more familiar with it. Those of you who are older, no, it doesn't mean I have an infection. It just means my brain has a lot more neurons than the average person. And I perhaps think a little too fast for a lot of people, which you guys probably already know. And I might not explain things exactly the way you want them explained because it works for me. But I think I explain things pretty well. But anyways, learn about neurodivergence, because I think that honestly is like the number one thing that's making people unhappy. I mean, if 10 to 15 to 70% of society is neurodivergent and almost zero are diagnosed in my Gen X boomers, like zero, because there was no diagnosis when we were kids and we didn't know anything about it. And we learned to adapt and mask and be grumpy and happy, which is basically my entire generation is grumpy and unhappy because we were all masking because our parents would beat the you-know-what out of us if we didn't. So, you know, it was like, just handle it. And then until you get to your time. So I think that's what comes down to is we've been hearing our whole lives, just handle it until it's not your time yet. It's not your time yet. You have to be at this level in order to be able to call the shots. So we kept our mouths shut for decades and didn't say anything. And we just did our work and kept our head down. And now what's happening is these doctors think it's their time. And then now the Gen X, you know, the alphas and the Z's and the millennials are like, oh no. Sorry, this is all over the place. Those of you who get this, get this. But I'm super glad just to have a conversation with anyone. If you want to talk about culture in your office, I mean, there are actual people who do this. This is so not me. I'm like the last person to do this. But I can walk in and tell you if the culture is good or not. I'm a very good vibe feeler. But I have to actually be in there in person to tell you. Anyways, all right. Thanks for listening to this rambling message. I'm sure no one will listen. Bye.